This is Robert Murglaci, founder and CEO of Mindshare Learning Technology, and welcome to this very special webinar in partnership with Committee for Children and Mindshare. Second step, thriving together, empowering students with social emotional learning. And I'm pleased to introduce my co-host for this afternoon, Daniela Ramirez, who is the Senior Education Account Manager for Committee for Children. Over to you, Daniela.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Robert. Welcome to our second step webinar with Mindshare Learning, Canada's leading EdTech industry consulting, news and events media company. I will be your host during this insightful panel. And it will be a discussion where you learn from SEL experts and leaders as they share their experiences, compelling research connections, and some proven strategies for implementing social emotional learning. We are very glad that you are here, and we look forward to spending about an hour or so with you today. I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to Committee for Children for those who are not familiar. We're a nonprofit organization founded in 1979, which means we are celebrating our 45th anniversary this year. We are well known for our research-based programs with a mission to foster the safety and well-being of children through social emotional learning and development. And we positively impact almost 27 million children each year across Canada and in all 50 US states with the Second Step family of programs. We're a group of leading researchers, policy and advocacy experts, instructional designers, and longtime innovators and leaders in the field. But we know that it's through the commitment of educators and administrators like you in more than 45,000 schools where Second Step programs are implemented that our vision of safe children thriving in a peaceful world can become a reality. We invite you to explore more about Committee for Children and our advocacy work by visiting our website. That's on the screen there, cfchildren.org. As we begin our time together here, I'd like to take a moment to share our commitment to equity as an organization. Committee for Children is committed to recognize, condemn, disrupt, and seek to rectify systemic injustices that create barriers to children's success. And as one step in our journey to supporting everything we do, I'd like to acknowledge that Committee for Children's offices sit on the unceded traditional lands of the Coast Salish peoples, past and present, and specifically the First People of Seattle, Washington, the Duwamish tribe, and leave space for you to acknowledge the land wherever you are. All right, so in today's presentation, we'll begin with some introductions and a little bit about Committee for Children and the work we do. Committee for Children's Dr. Kim will speak to the power of SEL and why it's important to teach it according to the research. Then we'll dive into the impact and outcomes, and we'll hear from BC's SEL Lighthouse District, Surrey School District, successes and challenges of implementing a district-wide SEL initiative. And finally, we'll end our time together sharing Mindshare's program review findings. I'll start by introducing myself and our wonderful full panel here. My name is Daniela Ramirez, as Robert has shared. I'm the Education Partnerships Manager for Canada, and I have the pleasure of working directly with schools and districts to further their goals and provide support towards their SEL initiatives. I am very excited to host this panel today of experts together with you, including our district partner, Rebecca Chider, coordinator of SEL at Surrey, Robert Marticelli, founder and CEO of Mindshare Learning, Dr. Tia Kim, VP of Education, Research and Impact here at Committee for Children, and the Chief Learning Strategies for Mindshare Learning, Timothy Gard. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in this important conversation today. So without further ado, let's get started on our topic today with this question. Dr. Tia, can you please address what SEL is and why is it so important to teach?
Thanks, Daniela. I'm excited to be here with all of you today. So if you want to go to the next slide. I think it's really important to just give a grounding on what social emotional learning is. There's lots of different definitions out in the field that means different things to different people. But the one way we really like to think about it at Committee for Children is by looking at this definition from the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And the definition is it's a process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. That is a lot and encompasses a lot of different competencies. So a simpler way that I like to think about it is that social emotional learning is just a way to help children and youth develop essential life skills that they need to be successful in both the classroom and outside of the classroom. And so, for instance, I have 2 teenage boys, and the things that I talk about with them the most, particularly when it comes to an academic setting, is really how do they use SEL type skills to help them be successful in the classroom. Things like planning and organization and being able to work well in groups and things like that. So that's just a simple way to think about it. And why is it so important to teach kids? You go to the next slide. There's a lot of research that has been done that shows that SEL and teaching SEL really leads to a lot of really great positive outcomes. So many years ago, go to the next slide, there was a meta-analysis conducted, which is essentially culminating lots of different studies and averaging across all the studies that look at SEL programming. And what they found almost 10 years ago was that SEL leads to positive outcomes, higher levels of social emotional skills, pro-social behavior, academic achievement, and lower risk of some problem behaviors. And really why this study at this moment, this time frame many years ago was so pivotal is because of that 11 percentile point gain in academic achievement. That really helped schools really think about, this is something that we really need to think about if we want to get better academic achievement and better academic outcomes for students. And more recently, if you want to go to the next slide, there's been more current, actually just published last year, a new meta-analysis. And what they found was the same thing as this older one did, is that students who participated in universal school-based SEL programs experienced significantly improved social emotional skills and behaviors. They found that participating in an SEL program really led to better school climate safety, which is really important because a lot of schools measure that and look into that. And it helps with better peer functioning and relationships, and again, helps with academic achievement. So the findings are consistent over time that SEL is really an important driver in ensuring that kids have really good social and emotional development, but also leads to better academic achievement. So those, really briefly a synopsis of why SEL is so important and why implementing programs in school can lead to really good outcomes.
Great, thank you, Dr. Kim. This data findings on school-based interventions actually put us in a great place to introduce our district spotlight for today. But before we do, is there anything you would like to expand on? I know you mentioned school climate and safety. Could you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, so school climate is something that a lot of schools work on and that they regularly measure. SEL in particular, I think how it works in improving school climate is that you're teaching kids obviously skills to help with collaborating better and having better peer relationships and more positive peer relationships, but also it just kind of creates a culture within the school where everyone, a simple way to think of it is just kind of being nice to each other, right? And working well together. And it really helps the educators in a school too, if their SEL is really a priority, to build a really good foundation and climate where kids can really thrive. And having a really positive school climate, we know, is linked to lots of positive outcomes for kids, and particularly academically. So it's great to see that in this study that implementing an SEL program really did lead to improvements in school climate.
Absolutely. Thank you for highlighting the importance of setting SEL, like you said, as the foundation for academic achievement too. Thank you, Dr. Kim. And now we'd love to hear from British Columbia's largest school district. Rebecca, can you share with us a little bit about your role and maybe some fast facts about Surrey School District before we jump into the question section today?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Daniela. So like Daniela said, we are British Columbia's largest school district, and we are growing and growing and growing. This year, we have 83,000 plus students. We're expected to grow beyond that significantly within the next few years. So we are quickly growing, and with that, the needs are also there. So we have 130 schools across our district, and that's secondary and elementary schools, amongst some other, specialized learning programs and alternative programs for kids that need extra supports. So we have a variety of district-wide initiatives that support social and emotional learning. We have 195 languages across our district that are represented. So we are a very diverse district. We're also quite large in size in terms of the land base. We are hosted on the shared and ceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Katzie, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo First Nations. And it is something that's very significant to us to acknowledge the lands that we're on, and it's a deep part of the work that we do here in Surrey. So our school district is unique, that we have social and emotional leads in 60 plus schools across our district. And what that means is that our leads receive release time. They're classroom teachers or they're school-based teachers, and they work on school-wide social and emotional learning. They build a school-based team for social and emotional learning. They create their own vision. They gather evidence of where they're at. And really that's where a lot of the beautiful work that is happening in the district occurs. And then with that, we have other systemic supports, whether it's shared initiatives or book clubs, things like that, that we provide as district staff to help support our learners and our educators. So we look at it as a multi-pronged approach for social and emotional learning. Having the systemic supports definitely supports our educators, but also supports our students, which is our ultimate goal, is to make impact on our students.
That's great. And this is really remarkable work, Rebecca. Wow, more than 195 languages represented. Now, can you share with us what does SEL look like in practice at a lighthouse district like Surrey?
Yeah, it really depends on the context. I mean, I talked about the systemic things that we have to support. I think that those are foundational in supporting. But then when we're at the school-wide level, it really depends on the context of the school. So like I had said, schools gather evidence of where they're at. So it's really just surveying teachers, parents, students about what we're doing well, where we need to go. And then from there, we look at what is it that we can focus on. And we use CASEL school-wide indicators, and we focus on one area, build a goal within that. And that's where a lot of the work comes in terms of explicit social emotional learning. And our number one resource that we have used is Second Step, and in particular, the digital version. So that's been a huge part of implementation in schools, and that could look different in every school. We do offer a lot of in-services around whatever the focus area might be, whether it's Second Step or another area. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your wonderful insights. I'm sure our audience here has gained some powerful ideas when looking into their own modeling at their schools. Moving on to some further outcomes. Rebecca, you shared a bit about the holistic approach the district has taken, right, to implement a successful SEL initiative that includes Second Step in place. Can you share more about the impact to students and staff with such an approach?
Yeah, I think when we're looking at school-wide social and emotional learning, I think when you're using a program like Second Step, the impact that you're seeing is that students are growing their skill sets in common ways or with common language. And so I think that that's one of the most significant things that we've noticed in Surrey is that, you know, when the administrators are aware of the lessons and the language being used and the teachers are using it, and in some schools, they're even informing the noon hour supervisors, you know, of different language, whether it's the STEP model or we're looking at, you know, different words like assertiveness or those types of things. When we're able to use the same language, one, children are able to understand, especially with so much diversity. And two, we're working towards the same goals. So it becomes a lot more simplistic in terms of school-wide. You know, if an incident occurs on the playground and the administrator's talking to the student, they're using the same language, and then they can have common shared understanding about maybe some steps to take or where to go with that. So that's one significant thing that we've seen. The other piece that I see a lot of times is with our teachers in their classrooms. They're busy. Teaching is a very challenging profession, and teachers have a lot on their plates. And here in British Columbia, we have a lot of autonomy in terms of our curriculum and how we deliver things and what we deliver. So that's wonderful. But then with that, it's on the teacher to then create curriculum. So if we have a program like Second Step that is well done, it is evidence-based, you know, we're able to have something there that works, that we know that works, and our teachers are able to utilize it. The program is really accessible and easily used, which is something that I know our teachers very much value and appreciate. So I think it in some ways lessens the load, but then teachers also see the benefits in their classrooms of talking about these things and building these skill sets with their students. And I would also say that, you know, we're also learning as adults. We know that a big part of social and emotional learning to be effective is how we show up as adults. And I even remember when I was a SEL teacher in classrooms doing Second Step in some of our inner city schools, I was going through, you know, some things in my own personal life. And I was like, okay, Rebecca, say the problem without blame, right? Back in the days of the books and the kits. But, you know, we start to use these things ourselves, right? And then when we're using it in the classrooms and modeling that, then our students are seeing it. So I think that that's also really great benefit that we're seeing.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more with you. You know, for students to thrive, educators and staff must thrive too, and these are such great examples of positive outcomes. But I think it's also important to recognize that there are often barriers to getting started with an SEL initiative or implementing a program. So could you share more about the challenges you've experienced in your role and at the district?
Yeah. I mean, it's complex in nature, right? So when we look at so our district, I didn't mention it before, but social and emotional learning is a priority practice. So it's housed in our curriculum area, and it is a priority of the district. So we very much view it as being part of the curriculum. But with that, we also have a lot of autonomies, and not everybody has the same values or perspectives that social emotional learning should be utilized, or some people don't feel like they have the skill set in order to implement it. So it can be a bit of a barrier in terms of not feeling confident or comfortable within, say, using a program or teaching SEL skill sets to our students. So I would think that not everybody is going to come to the table, and sometimes, you know, teachers are exhausted, and it's not an easy role to be in the classroom. So I think that that's a barrier that sometimes it seems like one extra thing to do and one more thing to learn and one more thing to take on. And I think that that's probably our biggest barrier, is sometimes just the load that's on teachers, and how is it that we support our teachers in implementing, and also honoring that teachers have their own beliefs and values that they bring to the table, and not everybody is going to value the same things. And I wouldn't say that that is necessarily a bad thing. It's just a different perspective.
Yes, of course. And it's definitely a common denominator, topic for teachers to feel like there's a lot on their plate, and the best thing to have when implementing an SEL program will be an easy to teach, and like Dr. Tia Kim mentioned, the setting the foundation of a core SEL class for everything else to ripple on academic success and lower absentee rates, behavior support, and so on. So thank you, Rebecca. It's such an impressive work your team has done building SEL capacity at Surrey. To wrap up, I'll pose a question to you and Dr. Kim. Could you both share just some practical strategies here for implementing SEL in a program like Second Step? It would be helpful for our audience to have a strategy to take with them today to help grow their own successful SEL implementations. I'll start off with Dr. Kim.
Sounds great.
I would say that it's really important to make sure that a site or a school is really ready to start implementing an SEL program. I think there's a lot of research that shows that readiness, particularly for educator and staff readiness, kind of going back to what you were saying, Rebecca, that people are really busy, but they have to be ready and kind of willing to do something. And so if you can just kind of take a pulse check before you implement a program on kind of where people are at, and then try to meet them where they at, so that you don't just all of a sudden, out of the gate start implementing a program or have these really high expectations. You have to really understand where is your staff at, and then build out a really thoughtful plan and how to get them really ready and bought in so that they can perform well, I think is really important. Another thing that we found using our own data with people who use our programs is that one of the most significant drivers or predictors of really good implementation of our programs is monitoring, data monitoring. And so if you either at a district level or building level are monitoring how well implementation is going, they tended to have much higher rates of implementation fidelity. So I think that are a couple of things that come to mind.
Thank you, Dr. Kia.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking of definitely in terms of readiness and making a plan. I think with that is also onboarding our teachers. So one thing that I've noticed that's most significant is when we come into schools and we show this is the program, this is what it looks like, this is how to navigate it, and we create accounts with teachers, they're way more likely to use it. I had one teacher saying, I'm going to go do this after lunch in my classroom. They're way more likely to use it. And when they see how simple it is to navigate, they're much more likely to use it. So really those initial steps of onboarding them is key in terms of what I've noticed for schools, for school usage. And then with it, just as a classroom teacher, I say schedule it in your timetable. I would schedule it at the beginning of the week. I wouldn't put it necessarily, I'd put it on a Monday, but then also have an alternate time on a Tuesday in case there was a holiday or something like that. And then later in the week, I would also schedule it in, because if it's in your schedule, you're much more likely to utilize it, right? And it becomes a priority and it's part of what you do, and the students come to expect it and they look forward to it. So just really making it a priority. And you know, I would say if you're having to do this as a staff group or a school-wide, then to get buy-in, like have shared goals, shared understandings. What is it that we want to achieve here? You know, when we have that vision and we come together and do that, then we're more likely to come together at it and more likely to be successful, resilient, and the students notice a cohesiveness amongst the school and staff as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with all these points about having a district ready to start and implementing with Fidelity, setting that time, like Rebecca, you've shared for core SEL class, and yeah, absolutely, leaders buy in to ripple into the rest of the school for the program. Thank you. These have all been great insights, which I'm sure have provided valuable knowledge to our audience. And now I'm very excited to connect with Robert and Tim, expert leaders in the EdTech sphere. Robert, I'll leave the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Daniela, and most inspiring, Tia and Caitlin. Incredibly inspiring talk and insight. About Mindshare Learning, we're leaders in learning and innovation, and we're coming up to 25 years as an EdTech strategy company. We do research, and we're proudly based in Canada, inspired by Kevin O'Leary, who was my mentor, the man on Shark's Tank and Dragon's Den. He's actually originally from Canada. And now I'm honored to introduce our next speaker, Timothy Gard. Has been infusing technology and innovation across the curriculum for 30 years. He's a teacher leader in STEM. He's delivered workshops provincially, nationally, and internationally on various topics in digital media, assessment, and evaluation. Tim has been working as a K-12 editor of the Mindshare Learning Report and serves as our chief learning officer and has published the product review of Second Step. And Timothy, perhaps you can share some of your biggest takeaways from this K-12 program report with us.
Thank you so much, Robert and Daniela and panel. You know, there's lots I could say about this program. I try to approach any program I'm reviewing from a teacher perspective, and I must say that Second Step. Wow, I was impressed, very, very impressed. In fact, this is really not the first time I've seen this program. I saw this program 26 years ago in Toronto. It wasn't digital, of course. We were using cards, but the board I was with was definitely in the forefront of education. And if they bought into anything, you knew it was something that was well worth buying into. And in this case, of course, once I go over the review very quickly, and of course, if you hadn't had the opportunity to read the review, then I encourage you to do so. It definitely is what Tia and Rebecca have talked about. And so many things they've said, I'm going to actually repeat, but I think that's worth repeating because it's so important. First off, you know, as a teacher using a program like this, you want it to be simple. You want it to be easy. You want it to have the resources built into it so that if you want to implement it, you're not scurrying around thinking, oh, how do I do this? How do I do this? Of course, you're going to have the support in the background. However, there is so much built into this online program that you're going to be feel supported in implementing it. It definitely it's you know, it's academic research and teacher informed. This program is something that if you're going to use, I think, and again to the point that was made earlier by Rebecca and Tia, is that you know, you've got to have a plan for it. You've got to make sure that you are supporting it with your teachers, and you can do that within the program. There is an admin portal or dashboard that you can review what's going on and who's using it and how much, which is something that I think any digital program needs to have in the educational sphere, simply because you want to know what's going on in your school or in your district, and so you can review that quite easily. I think it's worth stating that not only, and Rebecca touched on this a little bit, not only are we trying to use a program to support the students, because we know that if students don't feel safe, if they aren't healthy socially and emotionally, then it's very difficult for them to learn academically. I saw that in my 30 years of teaching. If a child is coming into the classroom and they don't feel supported, or they don't have the support, they don't have the structure to learn academically, then it's extremely difficult for them to learn. And so I think that's important, but also teachers are, especially today, I believe, I don't think this is a stretch to say it, but I think a lot of teachers are second guessing the teaching profession because they're going into classrooms and saying, I'm overwhelmed. There's so much social, emotional support that is required. How do I do this? I can't. I'm trying to teach, but then I'm going to have to wear this hat and this hat. And when you have a program like in Second Step and you have, you know, a district or a school that's supporting it, and it is implemented and supported rigorously and cogently, then it will make a difference. And so this is important. I think that this program, and I'm not overstretching, I think that every district should look at and every district should consider. And to the point that was made earlier, you have to be prepared to implement it. You have to be prepared to support it in a way where teachers are going to embed it into their program. So the digital program itself, there's, you know, it's very, very multimodal. I guess that's the best way of putting it. There are videos, there are, of course, clear graphics. There's teachers are easily led through each of the lessons to support the social emotional learning lesson, whatever they're teaching. And I think, you know, if you're going to do this and you have this kind of excellence in programming, then it will make a difference. And yeah, I think it's one of those things that I wish I had. You know, 26 years ago or 30 years ago, when North York implemented it, it soon disappeared because if you know anything about Toronto, there were these legacy boards that turned into the Toronto District School Board, this huge 250,000 students and, you know, huge number of schools, and sort of kind of disappeared, and it's unfortunate, but definitely something that if you're listening, that you should consider it, and of course reach out to the Committee for Children for support if you're thinking about doing this. Yeah, and I can't say enough about it. I was really quite impressed with what I saw in terms of from a teacher's perspective, and even from an administrator's perspective, because you want to be able to support your teachers, of course, in your school and in your district. Lots of units and lessons for each grade level, of course. It's scoped and sequenced in such a way that it makes sense, and it's put together in a way that you know, you can move from the K to 12. I believe there's a high school component to it as well. And so if you scaffold it over those years, you're going to see a changed classroom. You're going to see a changed school. You're going to see a changed district. And so I think it's super important to consider a program like this. And you know, if I was going to was reviewing a movie, I give 2 thumbs up. So definitely this is a 2 thumbs up program, and definitely would support it anywhere anybody who's interested in implementing it into their school or in their district.
Well said, Tim. And if I could just add from a Canadian perspective, knowing Rebecca's school district very well, as they are a member of C21 Canada, and their director is on the CO Academy, you know, they are a very high performing school. So it's you know, the synergy, and it's no surprise that they are so high performing and have embedded the Second Step program, and it makes an impact, a positive impact on student achievement. Ultimately is the goal.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Robert.
Nick.
Thank you, team. Thank you so much for all these insights. Your thorough review was very energizing to see, Tim, from your lens of expertise and the strengths and solutions this program holds to support school districts' SEL initiatives. And Dr. Kim and Rebecca, we've had such a great conversation. Thank you for your insights. Now, as we finish up there's a common theme that has emerged through connecting with districts in my experience. And this has been the importance of SEL in school belonging. So this sets us up to close with a video from our students' voices. So before I go, and I thought it might be nice for us and all of you joining us today to think about one way that SEL can help students and or educators feel they belong. So I invite everyone to put your ideas in the chat box. I will be monitoring back here. And I will also love to hear the thoughts from our panel. And I'll start off with mine. I believe mine is building connections as one of the skills that students need to thrive in the classroom, but also in life. I think building connections is also one of the 21st century skills that would create confidence on a student and at some point even resilience for thriving again in the classroom and in life. So meanwhile, I'll leave some time for everyone to put their thoughts in the chat and for our panel to share. I'm gonna go ahead and play this video for us, and I'll come back to hear our thoughts.
A sense of belonging is important because then you don't feel like you're alone. In high school, you don't feel like you're the only one who's maybe feeling a certain way or going through something.
I think a sense of belonging is important because it gives you like a connection to other people, which kind of I think is essential to humans, is like you feel like you want to be with others and you want to help others.
I feel like a sense of belonging is important for high school because it helps students understand who they are while also like trying to find out their own path.
I have a really great friend group. We're all always there for each other, and it's that kind of friend group where even though there's always like a couple people that are closer, you can all somewhat feel close enough with each other that you can talk it out. But even if I didn't have that friend group, I also have my school counselors and certain teachers that I know are there for me.
I like to see other people succeed. I love to see smiles grow on other people's faces. I like when my friends get into football teams or get into cheer teams or something like that. I just love seeing other people do what they want to do.
I think social and emotional learning should be, I guess, introduced through middle school and high school. It is a really important part of understanding who you are and understanding how to get in a group.
I understand that there's a very important balance between the student and teacher because the teacher is above the student. But when they make it seem that you can talk to them, that you're almost equal, there's that feeling of, okay, you're like me, you have the same problems as me, and I can talk to you about what's going on with me.
I do think that social and emotional skills should be taught at high school because some kids are just not prepared for like some of the emotional problems in life, and I mean, it's not easy, but yeah, I definitely think that it would be a good thing to practice.
Thank you for watching our Students' Voices video on how they perceive a sense of belonging. Our high school program is looking to equip students to take pathways of action towards creating a culture where everyone is most likely to succeed. So let's go back to our original question on one way you think it's important to have, why you think it's important to have a sense of belonging. I'll start off with Dr. Tia, and then we can pass on the baton to Rebecca.
Well, I'm a researcher, so I always go to the research and the data. And there's just a ton of research that shows that one of the most important ways to engage students into the academic setting and academic learning is that if they really feel like they belong. And a part of fostering that in a school setting is to ensure that there's really great adult, basically educator-student relationships. So I always think, you know, it's not only SEL is equipping students with skills to be successful, that it also includes educators in kind of building on their own SEL, and how do you build on that and create really great relationships with your students so that they feel like there's a place where they feel welcomed and that there's a place for them to learn. So I think that's one way to build it.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. I absolutely agree. And our high school students mentioned this as well, right? The importance of having this feeling of connection with their teachers too. Rebecca, we would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, this is a huge topic in our schools right now. And I think that sometimes we really think that our schools are belonging places, and especially in adolescence, our students are struggling to find out who they are and looking at their different identities and how they do belong in general. So in our schools, when I think of belonging, I think back to Brené Brown's work, and she talks about belonging versus fitting in, and a belonging is that I can be myself here. So when I think of belonging in our schools, I think of identity, and I think of how it is we represent our students and how they can see themselves, whether it's on the walls or in activities or different things, different clubs, things like that. And I'm thinking specifically with secondary context of how it is that students feel like they have something to contribute or something to offer, or how they can see themselves within their school environment. So I think that those are really key things, and especially coming from a very diverse school district, it's something that we look at often and talk about.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. I resonate with this. I believe Tim was sharing how beneficial a program on SEL would have been back at the time for Tim as a student. And when you mention, the relation between belonging and fitting in, again, it resonates with my student experience in, being part of a diverse school community. And how the implications this has in feeling valued and having positive outcomes in the school. So thank you for sharing this. And I'd love to hear, Robert and Tim, what are your thoughts about one way we can create school belonging and the importance on this?
Over to you, Tim, first, and I'll.
Every human being wants to belong. And I think one of the things that, and I think this has been touched on already, but I'm going to reemphasize it. As a teacher, we need to look at students as people trying to belong to a community, and creating a community is so powerful. And sometimes you have to let yourself go a bit. You have to be open and honest and real with students. And if you're open and honest and real with students, then they will often reciprocate. But that takes time. And I think just being a teacher who's sensitive and aware of the need to create community, and valuing each individual in your classroom for who they are, and making sure that you're encouraging every student in your classroom as much as you can, to say, hey, you know what, I noticed this about you. That's interesting. Can you tell me more about how that's important to you, and so on and so forth. So I think, I think just being aware as a teacher, being very, very aware.
Thank you for that,
Tim.
We operate a co-working innovation center for work and learning, and we currently have 3 co-op students here from a local high school who are wrapping up their time with us. And when you talk about a sense of belonging, they really have made to feel been a part of this community, because it truly is a community where we empower them, we give them agency. They work alongside our team, and they're doing a culminating podcast now on their experience. And when you give kids agency and you have them engaged, and you have events that people rally around, like our Thrive Thursday Feast once a month, and everyone gets to share a success story, what they're working on, and it really is inspiring and makes them feel very much a part of this community that I miss. I travel a fair bit, so I miss it myself. So that sense of belonging absolutely critical, laying the foundation in elementary and high school through the Second Step program is incredibly valuable and powerful for giving kids a vision of where they're going and giving them hope for them.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Robert, for sharing your insights. And I know you've shared a couple of times where Mindshare's offices are and how this can help identify the people that work in Mindshare, and also having this sense of belonging at the workplace too. It's very important as well. I'd like to honor if there are any questions in the chat at this time. Looking at the chat box to see, do we have any?
You requested a question around what can you do to, best build readiness or teacher buy-in, because I know both Rebecca and I talked about that. I think one thing to think about readiness, I think it incorporates two components. One is like teacher motivation. Like, do they know why it's being implemented, how it's going to help their students, how it's going to help them? So I think understanding that from the teacher perspective helps. And the other really important part of readiness is capacity. Like, do they actually have the capacity to be able to implement the program? And so some simple ways that show up is there just time carved out in their day to be able to implement a program, even if it's just 15 minutes, or do they have to figure it out themselves? Or, in terms of capacity, does the site leader provide ongoing training and resources and support to help them implement a program? I think those are two kind of easier ways to think about how you can build capacity, which helps then educators be more bought into the quality. Those are just a few things that came.
Thank you, Dr. Kia. Rebecca, would you like to expand on how is it best to build readiness or teacher buy-in from?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I would have probably said the exact same things there in terms of how to do that. But I think also when it comes to social and emotional learning is how does this connect to what I believe about teaching and learning? A lot of times when we think about what is it that we want for our own students or for our own children, we want them to be able to navigate life well. We want them to be able to be successful. And sometimes I think, especially with our school district being in British Columbia, the way that our curriculum is written is that we have core competencies built into our curriculum. And one way that I often approach that is that what are the skill sets that my students need to learn in order to learn the content or show what I'm asking of them. So really connecting the why to why we do this, and whether that's showing, the research, which is always a huge way to have buy-in, but also connecting to what it is that you believe and how does this connect to your own values about teaching and learning, and going from there. Because when we can do that, then we're able to see the outcomes much better, or the outcomes of doing this, the buy-in is there, if I said that well.
Yes, absolutely. The importance of the why behind the buy-in it's enormous, and especially aligning that, like you mentioned, to teachers' values and the overall district's values for actually gaining those positive outcomes. So I'll be moving forward
A sense of belonging
on our presentation here. We really want to hear about your district's SEL goals and offer you a myriad of ways to support your work. So I'll leave you here with a very easy way, specifically to district leaders, to get in touch right away and get connected with your dedicated Second Step contact. There's a link on the screen, so I'll leave that in there for a moment. And that brings us to the very end of our time together here. If you would like more in-depth information about any of our programs, or would like to see a short demo of the digital platform, or have an interest in getting a 30-day free trial, please reach out using our district consultation form, secondstep.org, like on the previous slide, /district consultation. And just like that, an hour has passed. I want to say thank you to our entire panel, Dr. Tia Kim, Rebecca, Tim, and Robert, for sharing this discussion today. Thank you to our chat support. And thank you to all of you. Your work with social emotional learning is incredibly important, and we want to support you in your journey in any way that we can. I'll say goodbye for now, and I wish you a wonderful rest of your day.